Hey there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a Western Practical Astrologer. Okay, so following on from one of my most recent videos all about Saturn through the signs, we're going to be exploring Saturn through the houses today. Yes, I am excited to share this information with you. And of course, we are going to center it around how you succeed. But naturally, because we're including the houses, this is going to be a video about where, right? So where do you succeed long term, right? So this is about long-term success when it comes to Saturn. All right, so we're going to get into this as well. Just be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and click the bell, all that good stuff. You know the drill. Haha, the Saturn houses today. Just some introductions, all right? So if you are interested in any of the astrology products I have available, you can find them all over at my website, hannahselsewhere.com. There you can also book a reading with me. And I do want to mention here, thank you so much to my patrons over at Patreon for all of your support. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. And also, if you are interested in, of course, joining the Patreon, you can do so. The link is down below. And over at the Patreon, of course, you can get access to daily forecasts, PDF guides, things like that. Move on to just the inspiration. All right, the inspiration behind this video, my podcast, the Cosmic Check-In podcast, I talked about Saturn. What is Saturn all about? Yep, you can go to it. It is episode 7. Right, just to fill you in, I talked about this in the Saturn signs video, but we'll just talk about it in case you missed it. But Saturn is really about where we want to be successful in life. It is about purpose. And the thing about the success that we crave and that we seek, it's more about the long term. There is longevity when it comes to Saturn. Naturally, we go through 3 Saturn returns on average, right? So you'll have, of course, these are averages. You'll have a Saturn return in your 30s, your 50s, and your 80s. What I further want to mention about this is, yes, one of the viewers did bring this up as well, but even after you experience your first Saturn return, you're still maturing. You're still learning lessons to do with your Saturn placement. It doesn't just stop there, right? And it doesn't just get to a point where I am fully grown, I am wise, I am mature, whatever have you. No, this is a continuous thing. As it says there, we also experience a 3rd Saturn return. Just depends on how long you live, I guess. But we can experience a 3rd Saturn return in your 80s around that time. But basically, Saturn is really about maturity. So we come up against these setbacks throughout our lives and delays. There are obstacles to overcome, hurdles, things like this. And then we also recognize that when it comes to our setbacks, well, they can be used, to our benefit, perhaps. We can learn to pivot. We can learn to persevere. But then we also recognize with Saturn that there are consequences to our actions. This is not about good or bad. But you could say then that Saturn is really like this karmic influence within our charts. But essentially, what we're going to be looking at, what we're going to be focusing on today is success. This is about you being successful. How can you work with Saturn? And just to mention one more thing before we get into the houses, Saturn, this planet and anything astrology related really requires effort. We still need to do something to get the most out of the experience. So when it comes to Saturn, this is about the work that we put in. And then this is also where we could very well reap rewards based on the work that we put in, right? And of course, Saturn is about the foundation. We want you to have a solid and strong foundation within your Saturn house, wherever that is. And then what you do when you have that solid foundation is you can build on it. and then there's longevity there. But with that being said, let's get into this. Let's go through the houses. I just adjust my screen. Okay. Saturn in the first house individuals. Okay. Your self-sufficiency and your determination are the very things that help you reach your desired long-term life goals. See, the thing about the first house is so much about goal setting and our aims. You then discover your purpose when you acknowledge what success means to you and what you want to be known for. And this is a process. This is something that you gradually learn over time. Perhaps your purpose is connected to steadily building a life that is rewarding and secure. What I want to say here too is if you have a Capricorn rising, it's kind of like a similar influence with Saturn there. If you've got Saturn in the first house, this applies to you, but if you have a Capricorn rising, this can also apply to you. But what you also want to think about is what sign is Saturn in? We talked about Saturn through the signs. So it's a good idea to watch for your Saturn sign and then for your Saturn house and then see how they're blended together, right? So your Saturn sign is going to show you the how. Your Saturn house is going to show you the where. So if you have Saturn in the first house, this is really about you, your aims, your goals, your ambitions. Naturally, you will come up against many setbacks. This is what we see when Saturn is involved. You will come up against setbacks along the way, along your life path. The first house is so much about our life path, our direction, such as independence insecurities, possibly body struggles too, right? There's a lot of work here to do with self-acceptance, accepting yourself, accepting the way you look, accepting your own choices. But you also learn lessons related to things like your actions. You may know more than most that there are consequences to your actions because you learn real fast, really quickly. It's like, oh, right, I did that. I need to readjust. Gotta move. Don't want that to happen again. Or it could be a situation of, oh, that works really well. Great. Okay, I'm going to keep doing that. More of that. But then this is also about you learning lessons related to your physical appearance and your persona, even how you enter into new situations. There could be some kind of, awkwardness or, as I was saying there, the independence insecurities, especially when you're younger. But you do start to find your feet, right? You start to kind of gain some clarity there. And I think a big part of this is actually focusing on your own path. Not listening to the background noise, to what this person's doing, that person's doing. It's like, right, okay, what do you want? What do you want with your life? Build there. And you also go at your own pace. Now, before we move on here, I want to say that if you have disharmonious aspects to your Saturn, there can be some tension, some struggle here to do with confidence, issues asserting yourself. Naturally, when it comes to disharmonious aspects, we can work through those, right? We can learn to overcome those. So maybe that just requires some type of inner work on your part. Of course, it does depend on your entire chart as well. But as you do approach your 30s, and of course beyond, you may feel a greater sort of push to stand up and to go after the things that you want. It's almost like the call. I even look at the first house as this call to action, if you will, because we think about the hero's journey. And when it comes to the hero's journey, it's really up to us if we choose, right? Do we choose to take that call to action or do we not? And so I think if you have Saturn in the first house, you may find that it's more in your later years that you take that call to action, that call to initiate or to go after the things that you really want in life. Okay, so that's Saturn in the first house. Let's now move on to Saturn in the second house. So if you have Saturn in the second house, your patience and your hard work are what help you reach your desired long-term security goals. So this is about the where, right? In the case of Saturn in the first house, the where is more related to, okay, your life path, the things that you want long-term, your mission, the self. With Saturn in the second house, this is more about your security. This is about your earnings, materials, all those physical things. So yes, it is your patience and your hard work that really go into this. And you discover your purpose when you carefully plan out your finances and get your resources, get your accounts and everything, get them in order. With that being said, you may find that during your younger years, you weren't so careful or cautious. There wasn't a lot of planning going on. Perhaps you were somewhat reckless even. Or it's that there were some fears to do with finances and property and things like this. Still, maybe it's that your mission is connected to owning property, could be, or providing for yourself and your loved ones, perhaps even starting your own business. That could be a big one. Or it's about really working up the ranks when it comes to a company or an organization that you're in. See, you will come up against then these obstacles, these setbacks along the way to do with things like self-worth, right? There could be self-worth issues. There could be material insecurities. And maybe even it's those material insecurities that are somehow tied to your self-worth. There could be a lot to do with your relationship that you have with money, to money. It's like, am I deserving of that? Am I capable of that? Can I earn that amount? Maybe there could be some blockages there in your own way. But you see, you also learn lessons then when it comes to these matters. You really mature. You start to grow in your success. You start to become more substantial. And so, yes, you learn lessons there, but then you also learn lessons related to things like your income, your assets, your skills. You become very possibly, this master, right? This very mastery energy is present here. So thinking about a particular skill that you have, a talent that you have, you learn that you must put in the work, right? It's all well and good to be really good at playing guitar, but if you never pick up that guitar, then, that's a waste, I guess. Or maybe it's just not really for you. That's another thing as well. But it's truly about, okay, what do you want to build in terms of materials, income, the property stuff as well? That could be a big thing. You could invest. You could very well become very mature and very wise when it comes to investments and your assets and everything, setting yourself up for the long term. But then again, it is too looking at the skills stuff here. What I want to say here is this energy could be quite similar even to having Capricorn on the second house cusp. So I do want to say that. But with Saturn being in the second house, we want to think about which sign Saturn is in. So Saturn in the sign is going to show you how, but this is the where. The second house is showing the where. Still, you become serious about physical matters. You become serious. Very, very mature indeed. Naturally here, disharmonious aspects to your Saturn can suggest things like limiting matters. There could be debt to be paid off, debt issues, or there could be major money fears, Or there could even be self-deprecation, or there could be some worries over, am I good enough when it comes to this skill, this talent that I have? I don't know. There could be some imposter syndrome going on there. But perhaps as you do start to approach your 30s, and with disharmonious aspects, I want to say we can work with them. We can work with them. You can even look at those challenges as a way to grow. Yes, as you approach your 30s and beyond, you'll feel a greater push to unburden yourself and to experience, here's a big one, pleasure. Because that's another thing. There could be a lack of pleasure and comfort and ease. Okay? Difficulty just properly relaxing. So yeah, I think you also come to make more time for relaxation and comfort and pleasure in your life. Saturn in the 3rd house individuals. Okay. Your persistent learning and concentration and your focus help you reach your long-term educational goals. This is where you want to be successful for the long haul. When it comes to a particular interest that you have, a subject that you are so fascinated by, you might even discover your purpose when you respectfully communicate and structure your thoughts well. That's a big thing. It's to have that kind of foundation when it comes to a particular subject and to build upon that. It's to know the fundamentals, the basics of a subject, and to have that be solid, right? It's that solid base. And even whenever you may find yourself going off in all different directions, this could be a creative thing, of course, you're able to still bring it back to this is the foundation. Maybe your mission, your purpose is actually connected to intellectual achievements, mastering how you convey information, right? How you articulate information. You can do that really, really well. But of course, this requires effort. It's kind of similar to what I was saying to people with Saturn in the 2nd house, right? If you have a guitar, you don't pick it up, well, then you're not really going to improve upon it. Similar with you, if there is a subject that you really enjoy learning about, or you can see potential there, but you don't, you don't pick up a book, you don't pick up your pen to write or whatever, you're not going to see that success. And this is what we learn from Saturn. You got to put that effort in to get something out of it, right? So for you come to recognize these things, I think, within yourself. Now, these matters could also be related to other things. So we think about your very mindset. It could be that there's a blockage in relation to, okay, I want to do this thing, but my own mind it's getting in the way. Maybe it's learning how to get out of your own head in this regard, which can be challenging. Maybe there was a lot of pressure on you growing up to overperform. Still, you come up against many setbacks and these obstacles then to do with things like speech insecurities, learning barriers, right? There could be a particular barrier in your way and it's just too difficult to kind of push past that barrier. It's like, I don't really understand. How do I see another way forward? But there are ways, there are strategies. There's the ability to pivot. There's the ability to persevere. Still, you do learn these mighty lessons to do with your intelligence, your very mindset. And hey, as well, sibling relationships, that could be a big thing, right? There's healthy boundaries within sibling relationships, perhaps. Or there could be even this more strategic way of thinking when it comes to how you move throughout your local area. There could possibly be even potential fears here, right? Fears when it comes to your local city, your local area, how you move throughout these spaces. And so, yes, there could be these blockages, but then it's also about, okay, is there anything there that you can overcome? Or can you maybe assess why that is? Still, you show mental discipline of the mind. This is where your mastery lies. This is where your long-term success lies. Naturally, disharmonious aspects to your Saturn can suggest, these pessimistic thoughts, having this really cruel, like, inner voice, right? That really punishing inner voice. And I do also want to say that if you have Capricorn on the 3rd house cusp, this could be a similar sort of influence for you, similar energy. But what you want to do with Saturn here is you want to think about the sign. So which sign is Saturn in? And then you look at, okay, this is the how, and then you relate it to the 3rd house. This is going to show you the where. As you approach your 30s and beyond, though, you'll feel a greater push to articulate yourself and to overcome your doubts, to overcome these fears, which again, they could be more mental. So moving on to Saturn in the 4th house. Saturn in the fourth house. Your inner foundation and your emotional responsibility help you reach your desired long-term home goals. Yes, you are the ones who are very smart, very wise about house matters, home matters. You're not the types of people, I don't think, who would rush, right? Rush ahead and say, oh, I'm going to get this house. I think you prefer to be strategic and you prefer to take your time. You discover your purpose, you discover your mission when you establish personal security and you get serious about your living conditions. So even if, there are particular emotional concerns there, perhaps even thinking about how those concerns are related to the past, family, this is your mission, this is your purpose to, perhaps address your inner world, or to perhaps go and create a life for yourself. Maybe your mission then is connected to forming healthy emotional boundaries where you can protect yourself, you can keep yourself safe. Or maybe your mission is more about investing time into your family or into your home. Maybe establishing yourself, within your family or getting yourself to a secure place when it comes to your home, your living situation. These things really matter for you long term. But you see, you will also come up against many setbacks and obstacles along the way. So thinking about demanding parents, family burdens, right? It could just sort of feel like everyone in the family needs you to do the hard work, to step in. I need your help, right? And then that can maybe even take you away from your own personal journey, if you will, when it comes to your own family, what you want. But you see, you also learn lessons related to things like your core self, right? What do you need? What do you need to feel protected, to feel supported? And then you also learn lessons to do with ancestry, right? You could be very interested in, your family lineage. It's like you see the family tree and who's who and everything. So with that, you could take lessons and insight from your family, maybe relate it back to, how you wish to live your life, but also how you don't wish to live your life. You could even be a rather traditional person. You really value creating certain traditions within your family. But we also notice here then these lessons to do with your private life. You could be a rather private individual, and it's like, people do not need to know my business, right? People outside the home, they do not need to know our business. Let's not go there. Still, you do become self-sufficient. This is what we notice. We notice just how responsible you are. Very responsible. Now, with that, if you have Capricorn on the 4th house cusp, or if you have Capricorn on the IC, we could see a similar sort of energy. We could see that. But because this is Saturn in the 4th, we want to think about which sign is Saturn in. So look at the sign, that's going to show you how, and then we look to the 4th house here, and that's the where. However, disharmonious aspects to your Saturn, if you've got Saturn in the 4th house, can suggest deep feelings of inadequacy here. We can also see potential father issues. There could be father challenges, especially because the 4th and the 10th houses can show us the types of relationships that we had with our parents. And then because Saturn rules the father, there could be some limitations there. Naturally, the thing about this is those fears or those feelings related to family and especially the father, for you, Saturn in the 4th house, I think it's important to not let those feelings sort of dictate to you the direction that you head in, especially if that direction is not good for you, right? Because there could be this whole thing of, well, because I didn't have this, well, I'm fearing that this will go this way, and yes, there's more nuance to this. There is, but it's just what I'm trying to get at is trying to be mindful of your own feelings of inadequacy, controlling your attitudes toward home and family, things like this. Still, as you approach your 30s and beyond, you feel this greater push to accept emotional support. Yes. And to overcome any family blockages and challenges. So there is maturity, there is wisdom here. And this is where we see the long-term success on your part. Saturn in the 4th house, folks. Saturn in the 5th house. Your self-discipline and your focus help you reach your desired long-term creative goals. My goodness, right? In my natal chart, the Placidus, so using the Placidus system, Saturn is in the 5th house of my chart. And I'm all about this. I'm all about my creative goals and wanting to be successful when it comes to my creativity. I have a lot of stamina, a lot of passion. I persevere, that is for sure. But here's the thing. This did not happen overnight. This is a building process. So for you, Saturn, in the 5th house, folks, this is about self-discipline. So if there is a particular, creative goal that you have in mind, or a certain interest, a passion of yours, and you think, yes, I want to do that long term. I want to become really successful at that. Even you want to be recognized for it. It's going to require hard work. Again, like I've been saying with Saturn, it's about what you put in order to see what are you going to get out of it then too. Still, you discover your purpose when you create something that is long lasting. And when you focus on your life work during your spare time. Now, this is where there's slight caution involved, I would say, because here, on one hand, this is about when it comes to your spare time, yes, use your spare time wisely. Think about, okay, how can I maybe, practice or get better at my passion or whatever it is. But it's also trying to not go overboard to the point where you don't have any spare time and everything in your life then becomes like work. So there's no freedom, there's no spontaneity, there's a lack of fun. But hey, to look at this from a different angle, this could very well be that the things that you do in your spare time, and if they are related to, creation, things like this, they could be fun. It could be a fun thing for you to work. But again, just be cautious of that a bit. Perhaps your mission, though, is connected to establishing a healthy ego, and then also making conscious decisions about children, being very pragmatic, being very sensible, very structured about children. Yes, you're going to be sensible about those decisions. You will come up against setbacks and obstacles along the way to do with things like your hobbies, pleasures, and play. You will come up against setbacks along the way to do. Hold on. Just keep going. Yeah. Now, you will come up against many setbacks and obstacles along the way, such as enjoyment blockages or romantic insecurities. See, with the enjoyment blockages, I think there could be that kind of lack of spark, or that lack of, oh, I don't really feel creative, or, I don't feel the most confident even in myself here. So there's some challenges there. But then also with the romantic insecurities, with Saturn in the 5th, it is more about, there is greater long-term success desired, and you seek more of a love, a romantic relationship where it is serious. It's more about longevity, right? And it's about commitment. But then you also learn lessons related to these things, and you learn lessons related to your hobbies, your pleasures, and play. I think this is the type of placement that says, as you do get older, you learn to lighten up a lot more. And it's almost as if you become more childlike with time, funny enough. And you may become more proud of yourself too. However, disharmonious aspects to your Saturn can suggest issues accepting love, right? Or there could be crippling love experiences. So there's some challenges there, but of course, it could be a matter of, as you mature, as you approach your 30s and beyond, again, you got to put in that work regarding Saturn. You'll feel a greater push to be confident and, hey, to let out your inner child. Now, if you this energy as well, I just want to say, could relate to you if you have Capricorn on the 5th house cusp. I have that, by the way. I have Capricorn on the 5th house cusp. But of course, we want to think about the sign that Saturn is in. So the sign Saturn is in is going to show you the how, and then the 5th house would be the where. Let's now move on to Saturn in the 6th house. Saturn in the 6th house. So this is actually the placement that I have using the whole sign system. Saturn is in the 6th house. Your dedication and your organizational skills help you reach your desired long-term working goals, your desired long-term service goals. This is where you become successful, okay? When it comes to establishing a routine, being more efficient, you discover your purpose and your mission when you develop a secure daily routine and you build upon your craft. This is so much about improvement. This can be self-improvement, but it's also about whatever, you're building, whatever you're working on, just keep refining that, keep getting better at that. Okay? Practice makes perfect here. And with the daily routine stuff, it could feel like, especially whenever you're younger, it's hard to find a daily routine that really works for you. But this is about, okay, try out different methods. And perhaps your mission is connected as well to taking your health seriously, or structuring how productive you are. Maybe even being somewhat disciplined, right? There could be discipline when it comes to your productivity. But then again, this could also be about showing discipline when it comes to how you can switch off actually too, because there could be this whole thing of just this pressure to keep working, right? To keep doing. And then those things could have a serious impact on your health. But then this is also where we notice taking your health seriously. It's like, okay, if there's an issue, if you can see there's an issue, attend to that sooner rather than later. I could share something personal about myself. I'll not get into detail about it, but there was a particular health situation that I was avoidant about for a while. And recently, I finally just went, no, it's time to just address this. It's not actually going to be difficult. In the long run, I will be thankful. So for you, if you've got Saturn in the 6th house, it could be this matter of, I'm just going to ignore that. It's no big deal. Maybe it's not. So just be mindful there. You could very well come up against many setbacks along the way here, such as could be critical thinking, of course, but it could be critical coworkers. It could feel like there's this criticism coming from coworkers or employees, colleagues, whatever, or it could be that you feel this critical voice coming from a parental figure in your life. And it's just like, would you give me a break, right? I'm trying my best here. Or it could be setbacks and obstacles to do with the physical health struggles. There could be some real health struggles there, which I'm not here to give you, this answer, right? This is the solution. Everyone has their own unique chart. Also, I'm not a doctor. But really just in general, when it comes to health, it's just so important to be able to be mindful, of what your body needs. And then it's about seeking that guidance, seeking that expert advice from those who do know what they're talking about. But you also do learn lessons related to your daily habits, your wellness, your work dedication, and deadlines. Hey, deadlines. Yes, and you become recognized for your services as well. So this is more about that long-term success for you, and it's more about, the work, the effort that you put in as well with time. However, disharmonious aspects to your Saturn can suggest fears of losing your job, or it could be these workaholic issues. So that's another thing. And this is also why I'm saying it's important to make time to, hey, rest, step away. Still, as you approach your 30s, you'll feel a greater push to address your fears of failing at work. You could feel like you're always falling behind at work, but it's not really true. It's a fear. It's not necessarily that it's rooted in reality. So yes, you address these things, and also you come to acknowledge when you're putting yourself through too much stress, right? When you're just adding more and more to your plate, and it's like your stress levels are just going up and up and up. Yeah. So it's about being able to see, okay, what's going on there? And like I said, as you approach your 30s and beyond, hopefully this will become a lot more clearer. If you have Capricorn in the 6th house, right on the 6th house cusp, this energy could relate to you. You may relate to this. But because this is Saturn in the 6th, we want to think about the sign that Saturn is in. In my case, it's in Aquarius. So that's going to tell me something. That's going to tell me about the how. And I find that with Saturn in Aquarius in the 6th, it's been more about experimenting with these things, innovation, stuff like this, doing things differently, bringing my own sort of quirks to my services and what I do. But then we want to think about the where, which would be Saturn in the 6th house. This is going to show us the where. All right. So we're going to now move on to Saturn in the 7th house. Saturn in the 7th house. Your commitment and your integrity help you reach your desired long-term collaboration goals. Maybe for you, there are certain people who you just think, I really want to collaborate with them, or there could be a great focus on business. So thinking about business deals, contracts, agreements, stuff like this. Naturally, whenever you are younger, you could have come up against more of these obstacles and these setbacks, and maybe you couldn't fully recognize yourself either. There could have been insecurities. Still, you discover your purpose when you put dedication into your partnerships, whenever you build your relationships upon a foundation of respect. I'll give you just an example. For me, Saturn is currently transiting my 7th house. So I can see this playing out within my own life in terms of, okay, it's time to focus on the foundation of my partnerships, business. Perhaps for you, your mission is connected to acknowledging your potential, seeing your potential within yourself, seeing yourself as successful, or coming to understand the lessons of your partner's mirror. Because the thing about having planets in the 7th house is that it's opposite us. The 7th is sort of like a mirror that's held up to us. So you may find if you have Saturn in the 7th that this is about, okay, what are other people reflecting back to me about my own potential? about my own successes and my own setbacks in life. Where am I getting in my own way? But there is this understanding coming from partners. Well, this could be, of course, a committed partner, a lover, your spouse, right? But this could also be about a friend, right? So related to a friend or a business situation. But there are maturity lessons, self-respect lessons kind of being reflected back at you for you to address within yourself. Now, you will come up against these setbacks and these obstacles, such as business deal problems or possibly commitment issues. So there could be something about business where it's just like, there's a lack of feeling successful there. Maybe because certain business deals or contracts, they fall through, or it's that there are delays, right? You feel like, oh, this is so delayed. Maybe people aren't wanting to work with you as often. Or there could be the commitment issues there, the fears there. So fears about commitment, fears about marriage, things like this. But you also learn lessons related to these things. You learn lessons related to agreements, contracts, clients. I mean, you may get yourself to a certain point where there is this solid client foundation. There is a solid business foundation, or there is, of course, the solid foundation to do with relationships themselves, especially with your significant other. And there's more, I guess, integrity there. You feel perhaps even more secure, more stable, and you integrate the part of you that is ambitious. Instead of seeing it outside of yourself and others, you actually are able to integrate that within yourself. You say, I am ambitious. However, disharmonious aspects to your Saturn can suggest fears of rejection or lack of respect. You may pick up really quickly on whenever people are disrespecting you. Or it could be that you recognize, oh my gosh, I have been disrespecting myself for all these years. Huh? What? So yes. Now, if you have Capricorn in the 7th, it's kind of like a similar energy, but because Saturn is in the 7th, we want to think about, okay, what sign is Saturn in? First of all, that's going to show the how, and then we look to the 7th house as the where. For you then, as you approach your 30s and beyond, you'll feel a greater push to be self-sufficient and to overcome relationship obstacles too. Saturn in the 8th house, let's move on to you. Saturn in the 8th house. Your inner resilience and your intense staying power help you reach your desired long-term intimacy goals. You discover your purpose when you address your deep emotional scars maturely. Whenever you also take responsibility for any taxes or debts, so things that are to be paid off. This could even be like a spiritual, like a spiritual debt, it feels like, or an emotional debt of some kind. But it is about, okay, you taking responsibility. Perhaps your mission is connected to establishing meaningful connections, really meaningful connections, meaningful bonds. And so you may learn really quickly, which types of people do not align with you on this level. Or it's that your mission is about being disciplined when exploring the unknown. So thinking about more of the occult stuff, the spiritual stuff, the esoteric stuff to do with the 8th house, really being able to pick up on the energies around, to sense things coming from others. You grow to be really strong in your abilities. And of course, you will come up against many setbacks, limitations along the way. Things like controlling partners, unresolved trauma. There could be some really heavy things here to look at The unconscious is speaking here. The psyche, there could be fears trying to push through. But of course, anything, anything 8th house, anything Pluto, this type of stuff, what we do is we address the shadow, we look in the dark and we bring it into the light, right? Because it doesn't have any power over you anymore, right? You bring it up into the light and you look at it and you stare at it and you go, I'm not afraid of you, right? I'm not afraid of you anymore. You don't have any control of me anymore. So it's this whole thing of, instead of those fears controlling you, you're able to have some type of control, to be the authority. But then you also learn lessons related to your unconscious, of just in general here. Very profound, powerful lessons. The types of lessons that will stay with you for the rest, the rest of your life, when things do become clearer. And also lessons to do with your sexuality, shared resources too. Hey, we see this with 8th house influence, right? People who have planets in the 8th house, they can be very good at business, amazing at management, being able to manage other people's money, investing in all the right places, right? So there's some serious stuff here that can be utilized, right? Used to your benefit. And you could very well face the hard truths. And then it's also this thing of, because you face the hard truths, nothing can really surprise you anymore. This is a powerful position. Okay, so disharmonious aspects to your Saturn can suggest fear, depression, major father power struggles as well. Okay, so I do want to say that, and I want to just say too, I want to be sensitive in this regard. It's a very heavy placement, Saturn in the 8th house. And if you do have Capricorn on the 8th house cusp, this could be quite a similar energy. You may be able to relate to this information. But because this is Saturn in the 8th, we want to think about, okay, which sign is Saturn in? That's going to show the how, and then the 8th house is the where. Now, as you approach your 30s and beyond, you'll feel a greater push to go through responsibility transformations. I think you do come to this point where it's like, okay, I am taking responsibility here, I'm facing my shadow, but then you also release any parental baggage. That could be a thing. A lot of stuff that you're carrying, a lot of stuff to do with the past that you're carrying. It's like, I don't need to carry that anymore. It's not for me. I kind of think of, just before we move on, the 10 of Wands card, right? The 10 of Wands, and 10 of Wands is carrying all those wands on its back, Yeah. So knowing when to drop those things. Okay. Let's move on to Saturn in the 9th house. Saturn in the 9th house individuals. Your realistic and your practical worldviews are what help you reach your desired long-term higher knowledge goals. You can be profoundly philosophical and you discover your purpose when you work through any limiting beliefs that you have. When you ask yourself life's harder questions, you may have those harder philosophical views, which can be used in a beneficial way, can be used for long-term success. Maybe your mission then is connected to overcoming things like these limiting beliefs, these fears related to your beliefs, perhaps, because I suppose that is another thing. There could be certain philosophies or beliefs that you have that are quite punishing or cruel, cold. But this is what this is also about, is how your purpose is connected to overcoming fears of traveling, perhaps. There could be fears there to do with traveling, branching out even. Learning, new things. There could be some fears. Maybe even there can be this whole thing of you holding yourself back, or feeling like when you were younger, especially, you were held back. Could very well be that there were certain parental figures or people in your life, members of authority, that were very like, no, this is the way. This is what we believe. In this family, this is what we believe, and this is the only thing to believe. Or it could be a matter of particular religious figures or mentors, teachers, having these views and these opinions. But it's almost like those views and opinions are really strongly pushed on you. So yes, your purpose, I feel, is really about addressing this stuff. And hey, being a reliable teacher. You could very well grow to become someone who is very wise in your own teachings and philosophies. You could even very well establish a meaning that you recognize, oh, I've put so much work into this. You could very well get to a certain point where, you have overcome those particular fears, those limiting beliefs, and then you become this wise, this wise teacher, this wise mentor yourself. Still, you will come up against these setbacks, such as judgmental issues or faith insecurities. But you also learn lessons related to things like your quest for knowing, your quest for meaning, related to your morals. You learn these lessons. And then those lessons also become a part of your message, a part of what you broadcast, a part of what you share with the world. You gain wisdom. You gain wisdom about maturity. However, disharmonious aspects to your Saturn can suggest this harsh understanding of the world, or seeing, the world as quite cruel, or feeling even meaningless. There could be a lack of meaning there. Again, with the disharmonious aspects, it is about, okay, there's challenge there, but there are ways to work with that energy. Of course, again, this is about looking at your entire chart, stuff like this, but I just wanted to say that. And then also, if you have Capricorn on the 9th house cusp, you may relate to this information, but because this is Saturn in the 9th house, we want to think about which sign is Saturn in. That's going to show the how, and then the house is showing the where. And as you approach your 30s, you'll feel a greater push to establish what is right and wrong for yourself. So you will approach your 30s and beyond, and it's like, what is right and wrong for me? And you will commit to your future visions. And there could be a greater focus on self-exploration there too. Right, let's now move on to Saturn in the 10th house. Saturn in the 10th house individuals. Your duty and your professionalism help you reach your desired long-term greatest achievement goals. Oh, such professionals, such experts. Maybe ever since you were just very young, you recognize that, yep, if I want to get somewhere in life, if I want to go places in life, I got to put in the work. And maybe you even had a parental figure in your life who taught you that. You may discover your purpose when you commit yourself to a particular path and you remain determined within your chosen profession. Now, with that in mind, is this to say that this particular path is the only path? No, right? There could be many different paths. It could even depend on the sign that Saturn is in. I mean, Saturn in Pisces, Saturn in Gemini, very different, right? Because Gemini and Pisces are mutable signs. But whatever the path is, you say, hey, I'm going to dedicate myself to this. Maybe your mission then is connected to building a solid foundation, right? A solid foundation when it comes to a career path. A solid foundation when it comes to a particular achievement, right? This long-term achievement, you think, I really, really, really want to achieve this. So you recognize that it is about that solid foundation first, and you build on it. Or even how your purpose is connected to being someone who is ambitious. I just want to say this too. When it comes to ambition, this is not just about materials. I just want to make that clear. It's not just about materials. It's not just about money. Yes, when it comes to Saturn and the 10th house and everything, there could be something about status and money and materials and all the rest of it, security. Yes, there could be. But I'm just saying it's not necessarily only these things, right? This ambition could show up through, really taking care of your family, being a good person, doing the inner work, being creative. Maybe again, this is where we got to think about which sign Saturn is in. And you will come up against, these setbacks, these obstacles, such as strict parents. See, that's the thing. It could very well be that there were parental figures in your life who were like, you need to follow this plan. And then you kind of felt like, oh, I must do this. I must do this. So there could be even some, I would say, processing that or having a closer look at that influence and asking yourself, right, is this truly aligned with me, with what my parents are saying? Or it could be that you do, in fact, think, yes, I'm going to live this traditional life. You could look at it as, okay, my father was a butcher. I'm going to be a butcher, right? That's just a simple example, but that could be more of a traditional route. Still, there could be setbacks to do with strict parents and public figures, or making many mistakes. And anything Saturn, anything 10th house, it is about, you know what? Your mistakes, they are a part of your journey. They are actually a part of what makes you successful. You got to make mistakes in order to learn. I've succeeded, I got that right. It's also about, oh, I wasn't quite sure there. I was not prepared. I wasn't planned. I didn't recognize that. Saturn is that influence that says, okay, well, you recognize it and I learned from it and move on. So you learn lessons related to your successes, related to your public image, related to career recognition too. Could be a situation where you're very much dedicated within your particular career, within your role, your position, and you're like, yeah, I want to be recognized. Saturn influence, I want that recognition. And so what you do is you put in that work, but you also, more importantly, you acknowledge yourself, right? You acknowledge how accomplished you are. That's the other thing. It's that self-recognition. Naturally, disharmonious aspects to your Saturn can suggest fears of public humiliation or major power issues. Thinking about certain managers, bosses, they try to step into this power play stuff with you a bit, or the control, the authority. And that can be really annoying, I'm sure. And I want to say that if you have Capricorn on the 10th house cusp, or if you have a Capricorn midheaven, so Capricorn MC, you could very well relate to this information. Still, as you approach your 30s and beyond, you'll feel a greater push to learn from the times that you get things wrong. Okay? And you identify any serious father issues too, or, just parental issues there. You can identify those and maybe make greater sense of those. Right, let's now move on to Saturn in the 11th house. Saturn in the 11th house. Your reliability and your quality over quantity perspective help you reach your desired long-term community goals. Oh, yes. Quality over quantity, Saturn in the 11th house, folks. You discover your purpose when you become a respectable team member and whenever you establish solid hopes for the future. Okay, there could be something where you're like, yes, I want that for my future. That is a hope of mine. I wish for that. Right? That's the kind of energy we're dealing with here when it comes to the 11th house. So with Saturn there, it says, you don't just have to wish. Oh, you're going to get there. But you got to put in the work. You can't just expect other people to do it for you. Perhaps your mission, your purpose is connected to building secure networks. Hey, that's the thing. You could very well recognize and come to learn that there's strength in numbers, right? So it's having that effective team, that teamwork ethic. Everyone's in this together. Let's do this together. But this is also about how your purpose is connected to solidifying a goal of influence. How do you wish to influence the world? How do you wish to change the world? Solidify that as a goal, as an aim. And then also, how can you join people together in that? It's sort of saying, okay, This is the collective mission here. This is what we're all pushing for. Now, you could very well come up against many setbacks along the way, okay, such as, okay, there could be networking issues. There could be networking setbacks, future disappointments, future insecurities, and friendship disappointments too. There could be this whole thing of, oh, I really thought that person was a solid person. Oh, they're not. But you also learn then which people are aligned with you in that way. Which type of organization, which type of firm even do you really want to be a part of? Do you want to put your efforts into? I think if you have Saturn in the 11th house, it's really important to you that, if you work for a particular company, that their ethics really align with yours, or that their morals align with yours, or that there is some type of integrity there. If you can sense that there's any of that kind of, the harshness, the authoritative stuff that's negative, I think you're quite quick to kind of seek then, okay, I want something where I do feel a lot more stable. Still, you do learn, right? You learn lessons here to do with your visions, team efforts, and social impact. You could be this advocate for change, and you are recognized. You're recognized within your groups. You're recognized for your mission within the collective, right? This is about group recognition. Many people recognizing you and seeing you. However, disharmonious aspects to your Saturn can suggest narrow-minded societal views, and that could be a thing for you. You yourself could perhaps even be quite narrow in how you think society should change. And also isolating yourself from others, right? It's like, oh, well, these people don't agree with me, so I'm just going to completely isolate myself until I find people who do agree with me. But then I get that there is the like-mindedness with the 11th house. But just because people don't agree with us doesn't mean that we, shouldn't collaborate or work together. I think, if anything, this placement shows that there is power to be found in our difference too. And hey, the thing about the 11th house too is we can challenge. We can challenge each other, and we can open up the floor for debate, things like this. You can learn, oh my gosh, you can learn many lessons through other people. Yes, people who are like-minded, people who want to collaborate with you, but also learning lessons through people who challenge you intellectually. Now, if you have Capricorn on the 11th house cusp, you may relate to this information, but because this is Saturn in the 11th, we want to think about which sign is Saturn in. That's going to show the how, and then this Saturn in the 11th is the where. Now, as you do approach your 30s and beyond, Saturn in the 11th house, folks, you'll feel a greater push to find strength in unity, okay? And this is the big thing that I just said. You grow to appreciate your differences, but also other people's differences. Lastly, we have Saturn in the 12th. Yes, Saturn in the 12th house, folks. Your prudency and your powerful sacrifices help you reach your long-term spiritual goals. You're the people that, if there is a certain spiritual practice that you have, you're going to want to devote a lot of your time to it. See, you discover your purpose when you devote your time to the spiritual, or when you devote your time to helping the less fortunate, or helping people who, have been rejected, who have been sort of pushed on toward the outskirts of society. It's like you want to go and join them and help them. And you may also even find that a lot of your work is located within like hospitals, schools. So there's that. Oh, prisons as well. And you may address how subconsciously guarded you can be. There's a lot here to do with the unconscious, right? Perhaps even thinking about yourself, Saturn in the 12th house, folks. Maybe growing up with certain mental health challenges and difficulties there. We see here possibly you feeling really very low or depressed, or just these blockages. Essentially, it could be many different things. But the thing about this is, you may very well feel this calling to want to help other people because you recognize your own challenges. And then again, this is also about how you may be coming to learn how to address your own fears to do with opening up, or how you can be guarded. There can be this resistance to letting people in. Maybe your mission is connected to even establishing a career, right, behind the scenes. Something behind the scenes. You're doing more of that background work. You're not really in the spotlight, so to speak. Or it could be giving structure to your imagination, kind of thinking about, okay, well, I have a lot of, dreams, and my imagination, hey, it could even be that there's blockages when it comes to your imagination. I want to say that. It could be that it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like I can't visualize things, I can't imagine things. My dreams, I don't really dream that much. And maybe, some of that is related to something maybe much more heavier, tied to your upbringing, whatever have you. But I think with time, this could more so be about, I can sense that things are coming through, and it's about giving it some sort of structure, maybe even considering how powerful your imagination can actually be in terms of, making things happen in your life. You could actually grow to become a very visual person, and you will come up against setbacks then to do with difficulty sleeping, switching off, right? It could be hard to even shut off your mind. There could be a lot of phobias here, phobias that disrupt your productivity. It's like these fears are just so over consuming, there could be even some issues with, these addictive tendencies yourself, possibly. And I want to obviously show sensitivity in this way. But here, you also learn lessons related to your spiritual practices, related to your dreams, rejuvenation as well. I think that's a big thing. To properly switch off, to retreat. I think that's a big part of it. It could feel like for a lot of your life, you've just been pushed and pulled and you need to do this, you need to do this. But really what you need is that solid space, that solid safe, right? That's that safe point where you can come back to yourself. Maybe even having a solid meditation practice could be really helpful, or yoga, something like this. Just whatever you need to retreat, to cleanse, recharge, and I mean properly recharge. But you see, you also delve into your fears. You have the ability, you have the courage, I think, and there is responsibility on your part too. However, disharmonious aspects to your Saturn can suggest unrealistic expectations. Okay, there could be some of that present, or overpowering guilt. There could be those blockages. And again, because this is the 12th house, these things could be unconscious. So maybe this is also where, professionally speaking, it's where other people can help in this way, right? Other people who may know really how to work with the unconscious more strongly there. Symbolism could also be a big thing. Just even, hey, a practice that can assist you, a spiritual practice, it goes back to that. Now, if you have Capricorn on the 12th house cusp, you may relate to this information, but because this is Saturn in the 12th house, we want to think about the sign that Saturn is in. So that's going to show the how, and then the 12th house is the where. So as you approach your 30s and beyond, you'll feel this greater push to establish yourself out of the public eye. And to address the larger picture of what success means. I think that's a big thing. It's like the feeling tone of success. What does that feel like? Okay, so that is all of the Saturn houses. Thank you so much, everyone. And just a reminder, thank you to my patrons over at Patreon for all of your support. And if you would like to join the Patreon, you can do so by going to the link below. Over there, you will gain access to daily forecasts, behind the scenes videos, PDF guides, all the rest of it. And with that being said, thank you all so much for listening today. You can book a reading with me by going to hannahselsewhere.com. And if you really did enjoy this presentation, you can always buy me a coffee. There's no pressure here, by the way, no pressure to do anything. I just want to be clear. They're just there if you wish. Thank you all so much again. I really hope that you found this video to be helpful. And if you would like to, like the video, subscribe, all the rest of it, leave your comment, what is your Saturn house placement, everything like that. Just, let me know, share. I really enjoyed and I was surprised by actually the response that I got in my most recent video about the Saturn sign. So I think we're on to something here. Let me know if this is something you would like me to continue. I feel like I want to continue doing videos in this way. But really, for me, what's important is giving you valuable, informative content and information that you find to be useful and practical. Thank you all so much again for watching, for listening, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.